I'm so excited to present this webinar along with the team over at Earned Wealth. Today, we're going to be having Jordan Frey, Dr. Jordan Frey, from the Prudent Plastic Surgeon website that does podcasts, blogging. I love some of his content. And we're going to have Mina Hoskins, who is the Managing Director and Senior Wealth Advisor over at Earned Wealth. So with that, let's get started, and we're ready for some fast track to financial independence.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that intro, Jorge. So as he mentioned, I'm Jordan, and you'll see Mihan there, and we're excited to have this time with you and talk about kind of some of the things we've learned or noticed on my particular path towards financial freedom. I'm not there yet, and then Mihan helping to guide other physicians to that goal. So we'll go ahead and we can advance the slide here. So again, what we're going to talk about today, and we've kind of put it in this rough outline, is first, we're going to talk about some of the roadblocks. Now I'll share my personal story with that towards retiring with $5 million, which is very arbitrary, but is kind of a good benchmark in terms of a nest egg for when a physician will be ready to retire. And then Mihan's going to go over some specific strategies, and we're going to go over some case studies. So I'll start a little bit talking about my story and some of the roadblocks and issues that I had, and we can go ahead and advance. So my story started about a little less than 4 years ago at this point, and I was at the time still a trainee in plastic surgery, and I was getting to the end of my training. I was in the last year, and at that time I realized, which was a surprise to me, that I was burned out. It was symptoms that I'd had for a while, probably over a year, but it took me that long to realize that they were the symptoms of burnout. And essentially, at that time, once I realized that, oh, did I get lost there? Okay. Mihan, where did I cut off?
You were burned out and you realized, and that's all I heard.
Yes. So yeah, and when I realized that, which again was a surprise, it wasn't something I expected to happen. What I identified as a primary cause was a lack of financial well-being, which I didn't even consider a part of overall well-being, because like many doctors, I had kind of just heard from mentors and fellow, attendings and mentors, like I said, that money was not something you should think about as a physician, that was somehow antithetical to being a good doctor, because we didn't get into this for the money. We got into this to help patients. But I was realizing that was a root cause of my burnout, because everyone was telling me, oh, you're finally going to graduate and you're going to be an attending and you're going to make all this money and everything's going to be great. And in my head, I was just going, no, it's not going to be great. Like, you don't understand. I have over $500,000 of student debt. I have credit card debt. I have no savings, no investments. I don't know even how to go about starting that. I have a young family to support. And yes, my income is going to increase significantly, but everyone's just telling me how I need to spend this money, and I need to buy a fancy car and a big house and all this other stuff to meet the image of a physician and a plastic surgeon. And like, my expenses are going to increase more than my income, and I don't see any way out of this hamster wheel. And I felt burned out as a result, and I felt bitter towards medicine, which I gave my 20s to, with this kind of idea and promise that we'll come out on the other end and it'll all be worth it. So that was a big shock to me. My wife and I then decided, we're going to try to start learning about this stuff, which in our minds felt very complex and complicated. So we started reading books and we started doing stuff. And ultimately that culminated a few months later with us just coming up with a simple written financial plan. I was still a trainee, so nothing tangible about our situation changed. I was still the same amount in debt. My net worth was still what is shown here, which, I calculated that for the first time after learning about it. I still had the same amount of debt. Like I said, I had no investments. I didn't really have much extra money to save or invest at that point, but I had this plan, and this plan told me that if I followed it, I would reach financial freedom, or this idea that I could work I would work because I wanted to, not because I had to, that I would reach that in 20 years. And that, to me, all of a sudden let this huge monkey off of my back, because again, I didn't see a way out of the hamster wheel. I was very bitter. Now, all of a sudden I had this plan that basically was like, all I have to do is follow this plan and I will reach financial freedom. That allowed me to refocus on what I loved about medicine and plastic surgery, which I still practice full time today. And it allowed me to kind of overcome this disconnection that I had, which was this image of a rich plastic surgeon and myself who was not rich or wealthy. And eventually I realized that that image of a rich physician or plastic surgeon, or, really any kind of physician, that's not the reality of what I was looking to achieve. That's why I had a disconnect, because I thought that's what I had to achieve, but it wasn't it. I just wanted financial well-being and financial freedom to be able to practice medicine on my own terms. And that alleviated my burnout a huge amount. I started practicing better medicine because I was doing it for the right reasons, and able to focus on what I loved about it. And that to me was a huge epiphany, because again, I'd just been told up to that point, thinking about money as a doctor is a bad thing. And really for me, I realized I became a better doctor when I started thinking about money, and money not in the sense of like, how can I make as much money as possible, or trying to exploit patients, which I think is sometimes the I guess concern, or maybe where that taboo originates, but money in the sense of just my own financial well-being as part of my overall well-being. And so that's why I started talking about this stuff. And you can go ahead to the next slide. There was from this result, and I think we can just advance a few more.
That's the next slide.
Oh, okay. You can go back. Sorry. I
Okay.
apologize. But I started seeing, real results from this, from just instituting some very simple changes. And then along the way, found out about Earned and eventually started working and coordinating with them, which really helped bring the whole plan together, focusing on not just the kind of investing aspect of financial well-being, which it obviously helps with that as well, but aspects like estate planning and taxes and things like that. So this brought about a real intangible change that I described, and then a real tangible change in that, just a few months ago, my wife and I passed $1 million in net worth, which was a big milestone for us considering where we started. And again, we're not financially free yet. Our goal nest egg is $5 million, like we talked about at the beginning. But we're well on the way, and it's allowed me to really enjoy the field of medicine, coming from a place where I was very burned out. So that's why I feel that this is so important. And so then I'm going to pass it off to Mihan now to kind of talk about an impactful event in her financial life.
Thank you. And I'm just going to go back to this main slide because I didn't get to get a little bit of background on myself, because I think it's important to understand where I came from as well. So I've been in the industry for over 30 years, and I actually started in college as a pre-med student studying biochemistry and cell biology. So I thought I was going to be a doctor. And with that first summer after freshman year, I thought, I should probably learn how to invest my money when I become a successful doctor. And so I found an internship at a brokerage firm for that 10 weeks. And at the end of the 10 weeks, they asked if I wanted to keep working there. So I thought, this is great. I'd love to learn more and kind of parallel path these two careers. And so I got my securities license when I was 19 and was working with clients while going to school full time. And by the end of the college, I had this choice, and I really felt drawn to continuing the financial services industry because it was a special part for me to take care of people, but in their financial health, not their physical health. So I still felt like I was helping people. But in this 30 plus year career, I had this opportunity to help co-found Earned Wealth. and take all those decades of experience that I had with clients who I could hear their pain points and understand like what was out there and what they needed, and be able to create something from the ground up. And so that's how Earned Wealth came about. And I'm happy to share some of those learnings to you so that you can have that financial freedom as well. So let's go to decisions. Unfortunately, it's not easy to distinguish between good financial opportunities and bad ones. And I'll give you an example. In 2019, there was a private equity firm that bought out a multi-location ophthalmology group. And one of the senior partners actually got an 8-figure payout. And he explored wealth management, but decided to go on his own and make his own investment decisions. So he ended up buying several Baskin-Robbins franchises instead. But the problem is COVID hit, the demand fell, he had a hard time staffing, and basically he lost a significant amount of that payout that he got from the sale of his ophthalmology group. So if we go back in time, wealth management would have been the right way to go, to do that extensive research on tax and estate, do that financial planning like Jordan was mentioning to know where you are and where you want to be, and have a diversified asset balance of retirement income and growth. So it's really important to be prudent and make prudent financial decisions. So what is financial freedom? And I think Jordan talked about what financial freedom means to him. Here, another thought is the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, and it pays the highest dividend of anything that money can buy. What are some examples of that? How do you do that? And so, as Jordan was mentioning, it's about mapping out where you are and where you want to go. That's kind of the foundation of a financial plan. And within that, you have different goals. Would you like to send your kids to college, pay for their graduate school, certain weddings? Do you want that second home or a boat or a plane? There's a lot of different things that you can put in that goal and see if you can get there. So when you do that, you need to know what to attain for the future lifestyle that you desire. Jordan had mentioned that $5 million mark, right? So to me too, financial freedom is not a dollar figure, it's a state of mind, right? Because I've had clients who had $1 million and they were happy as a clam, that just covered them. And another who spent $1 million a year, so $1 million is not enough, right? So it all depends on matching up your goals to your resources. So now we're going to examine 3 physicians that have achieved this outcome. Besides creating a financial blueprint, what specific steps did they take? So we'll start with Dr. Auster, maximizing savings. So you'll see here something called the 50-30-20 rule. It's a really basic rule, but it's good for someone starting out who doesn't have a plan at all. So 50 means those are the needs, 30 is the wants, and 20 goes to savings. So if you don't have a plan in place, that's a good place to start. Then you want to look to maximize wealth that's taxed the least. So when you think about this, certain assets are better in certain types of accounts. So put the income producing in the tax deferred and the growth and long-term capital to gain in your brokerage. And then finally, Roth strategies, building the tax-free bucket. So make sure you look at your 401k plan. Is there a Roth 401k available? Can you do a mega backdoor Roth? And can you do a regular backdoor Roth? So a lot of, I think, clients might think that they make too much to put money into a Roth, but there are ways to do it. And so it's important to explore that because tax-free growth is key. So let's do a question here. So how much can a 50-year-old save for retirement in a 401k in 2024? And I don't think there's a way for you to answer these questions, so I'll just give you the answer. And that answer is C, 30,500. And that's pretty awesome, right? Now, if you have the possibility of match or profit sharing, that could actually be 76,500. So that's a lot of money every year putting to work and compounding. And Jordan, we've got
back
to you.
This is, I think a huge thing, and I said before when I was starting out, like I didn't have any savings, and that's true. And to be honest, as silly as it sounds, I didn't even really have a concept of like saving as that important, just because of the way I grew up, and I didn't see my parents necessarily doing that, which is not a sound financial principle. And I got kind of overwhelmed at first thinking about like how to go about this. And something I talk about a lot is, like Mihan said here, a really good just rule of thumb is if you save 20% of your pre-tax gross income. And so that's what I ultimately set my goal as. And now we end up actually saving a lot more than that. And we've kind of tailored our plan again to our specific goals. But that's a really good rule of thumb. And I talk to a lot of people who that may seem very overwhelming, either because they're still in training, or they are out of training and maybe early, mid, late career, whatever, and they kind of have their expenses are what they are at this point, and it seems very challenging to pare that down. And what I usually recommend is, like, nobody's saying you have to go from 0 to 20% right away. Like when I was starting out, as I said, I was a trainee, and there was just no way. I had 2 kids. We were living on just my resident salary. My wife was finishing her PhD in New York City. There was no way we were saving 20%. But we could do better than 0%. So the first time we ran a budget, which is an important component of this, to create your savings rate, we said, all right, we're going to create a savings rate of 1%. That's our goal this month. And then the next month we tried for 2%, 3%. And we eventually, I think we got up to 4 or 5% before we kind of topped out. And then I graduated and we created a much higher savings rate. But that's a good way to start. And especially if you're paring back expenses and you're going to have to make some tough decisions about what exactly are needs and wants, as Mihan kind of mentioned. So I think that's a really important principle, and that's kind of the way that I go about it.
So we'll explore another case study. We've got Dr. Shearer, and her way of getting to this point was minimizing taxes. So understanding how various types of incomes are taxed, W-2, 1099, partnerships, capital gains, etc. If you have some 1099 income, that opens up a whole nother door of potential deductions, which can lower your taxes. So it's important to look at the types of income that's being taxed. Another thing is multiple savings buckets, both taxable, tax deferred, and tax-free. And I see this a lot in that there's a lot of money moved over to the tax deferred accounts, but not necessarily in the taxable accounts. And it's important to put money in those taxable accounts just because it gives you optionality, right? Remember, the tax deferred accounts are ones you're supposed to access at 59.5 or later. So you need some type of bucket to access between now and then that's in a tax efficient way that you won't get penalized for. So definitely don't forget the taxable account, because there could be unforeseen expenses, but also to be available for opportunities and peace of mind. And then maximize your deductions and credits and retirement plans. So we have another question here. How much on average are physicians paying in state and federal taxes? So the answer is C, and it's 100,000. And that was taken from Medscape 2023 Physician Tax Report. And we've got the third case here, and this is for Dr. Diligent, invest like the pros. So avoid chasing alluring stories and becoming an investment collector. I think as physicians, you do get approached a lot for these one-off type of investments, private investments, things that sound really exciting, and just be very cautious, right? It's important to have your liquid assets built up so that you do have the ability to address issues like on a rainy day, right? Don't have too much in illiquid assets. Also, design your portfolio with purpose and align to your long-term goals. In other words, invest like the pros. Endowments, they invest like this. Institutions invest like this. You want to invest like the pros. Also have a tax-efficient score and return-generating satellites. So how do we do this? And we'll talk about 3 different ways. Investing like the pros, how did Dr. Diligent get to 9 million? 1, through custom indexing, which I'll expand upon. tax loss harvesting, and private investing. The first is custom indexing. So if you know what an index is, for example, like the S&P 500, you've heard it on the radio or news, it's an index comprised of the top 500 companies in the country. So an example would be, to the left, you see a mutual fund or ETF. And what that represents is that basket of stocks of that index. And think of it as a locked briefcase. And so when you buy that index, that briefcase, those stocks are in there and they're locked. You can't pick and choose what's in that briefcase. With custom indexing, we actually unlock that briefcase so you can see the stocks inside, and you can actually take ones out and put ones in. And that's what we do with tax loss harvesting. But think about the ability of being able to customize that index, but still having the index-like returns with the added alpha of tax efficiency. So as a side-by-side comparison, mutual funds are professionally managed. You probably see them as choices in your 401k or your 529. And that's fine if you want something diversified and there's limited options. ETFs takes it to another level by being more tax efficient because they have lower fees and transparency. But custom indexing checks all these boxes because it allows for, in addition to the other two, investment customization, ESG, SRI, faith-based restrictions. So you can actually have certain types of stocks that don't align with your values out. The tax loss harvesting, which I'll show you an example of, and then tax transitioning. So by having a custom index, if you have an existing portfolio, you can actually build around it so that you're not blowing it up and causing realized capital gains that you don't want. So let's expand a little bit more on tax loss harvesting. So custom indexing allows, it's coupled with technology, allowing you to systematically capture and benefit from tax losses in individual stocks, even when the index is up. So let me give you an example. The S&P in 2021 was up 26.9%. But if you looked inside that briefcase, you would see that Win was down 23%, Activision was down 28%, and Global Payment was down 36.9%. In fact, 70 stocks were negative. So again, thinking about that briefcase, if you had the briefcase index and you had 70 stocks that were negative, there's nothing you can do about it because it's locked. With a custom index, you can actually take those losses and replace them. For example, if Pepsi was down and Coca-Cola was available to buy, you can do that swap right there and do it in the same day. So that's the brilliance of custom indexing. And it also allows you to create a bank of losses that can be tapped into until they are fully utilized. Now, I remember hearing this misconception a few times, which is interesting in that many people think that you can only use up to $3,000 of these losses. And so if you had pretty significant losses, you would take forever to use them up, but that's not true. So the $3,000 comes in where it reduces your taxable income, but it can be used unlimited for capital gain. So if you sold a property, it was up $100,000 that you made profit on, but you happen to had banked $100,000 in losses from your brokerage account, those can be lined up so that you don't have to pay taxes. So for example, in this custom index, if you started with $1 million in an investable asset, tax smart investing portfolios can incrementally earn greater than $3 million over 30 years. So you'll see the light green is without tax management, and the darker green is with tax management. So you can see how that compounding effect can really have a difference over 30 years. The third topic is private investing. Now, all private investments are not created equal. So I think it's important to say that while it's important to have a diversified portfolio, we also do see the opportunity in private investments. So if you look at the largest 185,000 companies in the United States, the actual ones that are public are just a sliver. And what I mean by public is the ones that you can buy on your computer on a brokerage account, right? They're publicly traded. There's a stock symbol and so forth. The rest is, the majority of it is private. And it's companies you probably don't even think about that you think they're public, but they're not. So a company like Fidelity Investments is private. It's not public. It's a brokerage firm, and they're private. And so there are a lot of private companies out there that came from, or actually vice versa, a lot of private companies turn into those public companies that you are aware of, right? So there are opportunities in our asset allocation model. We feel that having up to 20% of your portfolio in private investments can be good. No more than that, just because private investments are illiquid. And so you don't want to get stuck in a pickle where, all your money is in something that you can't get access to. So on average, private equity returns have exceeded public equities by 4.3%. So if you think about that extra alpha, that excess private equity returns over public market returns of 1 million invested over 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. So if we go back to the case study for Dr. Diligent, collectively, these strategies add nearly 6 million of net worth over 15 years, leading up to Dr. Diligent's retirement. And that was using 7.5% through a disciplined, tax-smart investment approach. So you have the opportunity to create a financial legacy with the right plan and strategies in place. At Earned, we'll help our clients determine net worth, goals and gaps, maximize savings, minimize taxes, and invest wisely, and achieve financial independence. Jordan?
Hey, so yeah, Mihan, thank you for going over all that. So again, kind of to go back to my story and situation, when we started out, that was our net worth that shows right there when we first calculated it was negative $520,000. And a significant amount of that was due to debt. We now have 3 young boys. At the time we first calculated that, we had 2. But we wanted to give ourselves the best, opportunities, both professionally and personally. And we realized that for us, that meant to be financially free, so that we could really kind of dictate our time as we wanted. So I talked about, our first step was we developed a written financial plan, and that was the huge step that initially alleviated the burnout that I was feeling. And we continue to follow that, which has been, continually tweaked and stuff like that, working with Mihan and Earned as well. We avoided lavish spending. I mean, this is a big principle of mine, because again, like I mentioned before, I had a big disconnect between what I thought a doctor was supposed to look like and what I felt like I looked like. And I realized ultimately that those expectations were completely misplaced and not aligned with my goals and values, and honestly, not even necessarily with most physicians, but we do feel that there's an image we have to live up to. And so for us, again, a big concept became intentional spending, where, the goal is not to not spend money. I mean, money, and the reason we're doing this is ultimately only good for the joy it can bring, yourself, your loved ones, and the world at large. So it's meant to be spent and used, but it's meant to be spent and used in a way that actually brings you joy. And so you really have to think hard about that and align those things. Another big part of the puzzle for us is minimizing our tax burden. So we do that in a bunch of different ways. The ways that Mihan discussed, and in addition, we invest in real estate and use that as a vehicle to reduce our tax burden. Along with, I've established 1099 income through side gigs and use that also to reduce our tax burden. And then the way we invest, like Mihan said, like indexing is the core of our investment strategy. And we really have kind of learned to ignore the noise and these kind of things that get bandied about in the physician's lounge. And I mean, like literally just the other day, I was hearing a physician talk to another about like this, too good to be true opportunity, and was basically biting my tongue off to kind of not interrupt. So those are really kind of the tenets of what we did. And for me, bringing Earned on was a big part of it for a number of reasons. I I liken financial advising, and I mean this in the best way possible, so bear with me, to like landscaping. Like I can landscape myself. Like I know I can cut the grass and put the plants in and do the mulch and all that stuff. But I don't want to do every aspect of it myself. So ultimately, we're able to offload some of that, which is one component of it. But finding the right place was very challenging. And I'll say the reason that I ultimately, we decided to work with Earned is because of the holistic approach. So a lot of I would say the majority of the financial, advisors that I talked to, it was basically they didn't really want to talk until we invested the money with them and they were going to get their percentage. And, they had a lot of active strategies, which obviously was not something I was particularly interested in. And when it came to Earned, it was like, okay, why don't we start just reviewing your plan and going through everything and just tweaking that. And then we were able to go into the tax side and the estate planning side, even an insurance review, which, I'll say was extremely objective because I got my insurance before and they reviewed it and said, look, you actually are covered the way you need to be, and we can continue reviewing this, but right now there's nothing you need to do. So it was that holistic kind of approach that impressed me, and their principles aligning with mine. And so that's what we've kind of continued to use. And Mihan and I just, coincidentally, like a month ago, kind of went through our sort of like review of everything together, and we're able to see, where we are in terms of obtaining our goals and forecasting forward to see, if we're on track to achieve them, when we want to achieve them. So that sort of guidance and sort of support has been very helpful.
Thanks, Jordan. It really is a pleasure working with you and all the physician clients that we have, because I know how busy you all can be, right? And time is precious. And so to be able to take some of that off the table so you can enjoy time with your family and your own pursuits on the prudent plastic surgeon, it's just a really rewarding experience. I think we're on to, you kind of went over this, right?
Yeah, I kind of touched on that. So I
Okay.
said, we just reached our $1 million, which again is not our goal, but it's an important landmark for us. I remember when we first had on our financial plan and we wrote down our goals and we said we wanted to reach $1 million in 10 years, which would be 2030. And so we were able to reach that ahead. And so that was really kind of a cool thing to see. Okay, we're on the right track. And I will say, I meant to say before, but I think this is an important point. I mentioned again, in terms of the intersection of medicine and personal finance and kind of the importance of financial well-being, I'm not at financial freedom yet, but knowing the track that I'm on, it does have real impact on my professional life, because I'm able to kind of titrate what I have to do, in the sense of, like this past year, I was able to coach both of my kids' Little League teams, which was a real time commitment. And, something if I felt like a lot of doctors do, like, oh my God, I need to maximize every RVU and every paycheck and everything I can do, because I just need to, the only way to get off this hamster wheel is to increase the income. And so then you end up doing more, and there's ultimately just a limit you reach. And that's where burnout happens a lot of times. I was able to say, look, we're on path to meet our goals, probably ahead of our goals, and I don't need to do that. I can spend time now focusing on the things that are more important. And, my patients are obviously very important, but not if I'm, rushing or doing not a mindful job of caring for them. So that's been really, really a huge impact that this has had on my professional life and inherently on my personal life as well. So it's certainly been very worth it, and a journey that we're excited to still be on.
That's so great to hear, because also your kids won't stay little forever. So it's so nice that you can carve out that time to do the Little League with them. So I think we're on to the Q&A here. See if we have any questions.
Let's see.
Well,
I think,
let's see.
I'm looking at one. I think this maybe I'll direct this one to you, Mihan.
Okay.
What is a common financial misconception for mid to late stage physicians? So I think that's a good question, because I think sometimes those in mid or late career feel like, oh, there's not much I can do, or something like that.
Yeah, actually, that is a misconception about there's not much you can do. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I have a client who signed on. He's 62, so you think that's a little bit later in the career stage, right? When we did his financial plan, the trajectory showed that he would have run out of money at 77 based on what he was doing. So by restructuring the plan, his retirement date was still the same, 67, but with some changes in place, we were able to now project at the end of his life expectancy, we chose 92, he would actually have a couple million left over to give to the family, to his kids. So
Wow.
from running out at 77 to having an extra couple million to give to the kids, there was time, right? There was time between 62 to 67 to make some changes that were dramatic, but still achievable, and really gave him peace of mind.
That's awesome. I mean, that's obviously a huge difference.
Yeah.
And I would say definitely feel free, anyone, to just type your questions into the chat. We're happy to answer anything related to what we talked about, or just general questions or thoughts about kind of personal finance journey and where we've been or where you're looking to go.
I do see some questions here. Is it too late to start this investment if one is already retired? Has that ship sailed? No, we have brought over clients that are retired. And I think with more wealth comes more complexity. And I would say there's so much going on in the financial picture for a client when they're retired, because we're thinking about not only preserving the lifestyle that they've been accustomed to, but when you're in a high net worth situation, it's also thinking about how do you give this money efficiently, right? Either to the charities that are important to you or to your family. And the estate tax exemption is going to sunset at the end of 2025. Right now, the exemption is huge. I mean, a lot of people are not in a taxable estate situation, but if they don't change anything, all of a sudden a lot of people will be. And so that's where it's time to think about irrevocable trust, gifting to the family, doing 529s for the grandkids. I mean, lots of strategies that can be done in order to preserve your lifestyle in your retirement, but also preserve your assets so they don't go to unnecessary taxes.
I think I'll take, I see Kareem has a question. When you say 20%, does that include investments? Yes. And I none of this is like, a written in stone or something, but with that savings percentage, I include debt payments to that. So if you're like starting off and paying off debt, a lot of people say, well, does that count as savings, or it's just investments? So yeah, I count the savings you do towards your emergency fund, towards paying off debt, towards investments. And again, it's a general rule of thumb. If you do that and you're towards the beginning of your career and you work, a normal career lifespan, you invest in a wise, tax efficient and fee efficient way, then you'll reach, financial freedom as a physician.
Let's see, another question here is, can you tax loss harvest from retirement account? No, only in a brokerage account. But if we're going to talk about a retirement account, one thing that we do for our clients, and I call it the sweet spot. So in the time that they retire to the time that they have to take money out for their required minimum distribution, they're generally in a lower tax bracket than they were when they're working. So what we do is we'll model a certain ceiling for clients in the tax bracket that they're comfortable with, and do consistent Roth conversions each year to then move money from retirement account over to Roth so that can grow tax-free. And it's important because if you wait too long and you push it out, by the time you're at the required minimum distribution age, and if you have a really big IRA, you're back at a high tax bracket again. So it's really about having your game plan in a few steps ahead so that you're not stuck with fewer decisions or fewer options.
What, maybe because you mentioned the Roth, and Kareem's asking, can you talk a little bit about the mega backdoor Roth conversion?
Yes. So you have to hit a couple check marks first at your 401k plan. So you have to find out if they allow in-service withdrawals and if they allow for after-tax contributions. So not all 401k plans allow it. So you've got to find that out first. And if you find that is allowed, then now you're able to contribute. So what you're able to do is put your after-tax dollars into that retirement plan and then convert to the Roth. So you can do a lot more in your 401k than you can do in a regular Roth. And that's why they call it the mega. So let's say someone has a lot of money in their brokerage account and they definitely have room to put money into their 401k through the mega backdoor Roth. It's a great way to do what's called asset location. You're just moving your money around from one pocket to the other, but in that, making that one pocket where it's going to more tax efficient.
And if you're doing that, if you're doing that from the taxable account, there's no tax hit on that. Obviously, if you're doing it a conversion from a pre-tax account to the Roth, then you pay those taxes at that time of conversion, correct?
Yes. So think about it like it's after-tax money already, so it's coming from your account. So let's say it's from your checking account that's already been taxed. So you're putting in after-tax money and converting it, so you're not causing more tax, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's already after-tax money that you're putting in there.
But can you make a Roth conversion from a pre-tax account?
Yes.
Like
so a regular IRA,
yeah.
You can convert to a Roth, and when you do that, that's a taxable event. And
Right.
Ideally, you'd want to pay that from your brokerage account, not from the retirement account itself, because you want as much in there as possible to grow tax-free.
Okay, makes sense.
We've got another question from Madhuri. Any recommendations for physicians who are all 1099 income? I have an S corp currently and have a SEP IRA. There are a lot of things you can do with 1099 income, and we actually do tax planning for our clients and have the ability to do tax preparation as well with our recent acquisition of Thomas Dahl. It's in the headlines if you want to look it up more. But there are a lot of different choices. So one, there are a ton of deductions available as a 1099 income person. Then there's also either solo 401k or a 401k plan, and where you can possibly do profit sharing and a cash balance to really optimize your deferral. So a lot of different options. I couldn't tell you exactly what to do because it's very specific and individual, but definitely look into earned wealth.
Ricky's got a good question here. And I think he and I have talked personally about this offline, so I want to hear your take, Mihan. What after-tax interest rate do you guys use to pay off debt versus invest? So if you had to pick a number, what interest rate would you say, don't pay off that debt, invest it?
It's hard because you have to think about opportunity costs, right? So if the potential investment can do better than the rate that you're borrowing the money off of, then that's a win. But there comes a point where it's also about your personal comfort zone, right? And we're used to higher interest rates now, but just a few years ago, things were really low, right? So it was easy to say, well, I'm not going to pay that off it because it's 2 or 3%. I'm going to invest that money. Now in the 7s, it starts to get a little bit gray. And so I think what I would say to you is I like to go 50-50. If you're stuck in a situation where you're trying to choose, you can do both. So continue to pay down the debt, but also invest. And that way you're kind of straddling or hedging your bets.
I'm putting you on the hot seat. You have to choose one number for you personal. I'm not saying a recommendation for everyone. What's your number? I'm going to see. I know what mine is.
8.
Yours is 8. Mine's 5%. But I'm very conservative about debt. So that's a good one, Ricky. Okay, here's a good one too for you, Mihan. Is it too early to talk to a financial advisor if you aren't attending for 6 months? So if you're still in training.
Great question. We actually do have a lot of clients that come on board because of the help that they need with debt pay down, PSLF. What many don't know is that in the last year of your training, if you get your disability insurance that year, you get a discount. And so at Earned, we help our clients explore all the different insurance that they need, whether it's term, disability. But the sooner you get it, the lower the premium is, and then you don't have to do that medical exam when you jump up and pay and need to increase your coverage. So a lot of clients do see the value and benefit of working with Earned. It especially helps if you have a little bit of extra discretionary money to invest so that we can actually invest the money and have it grow. But you can certainly benefit from financial planning because you're faced with a lot of difficult financial decisions at an early age, right? Ones that can make a really big impact in the long run. So to be able to make those financial decisions confidently, knowing that experts are in the behind the scenes for you, I think can give you a lot of peace of mind.
How do you guys assess risk tolerance? This is from Ricky again.
Yeah, so we start off, we actually have a proprietary risk tolerance questionnaire that we have all our clients go through. And we tell them it's not set in stone, it's just a starting point. So we see where you land. But in the financial planning process, we'll actually show you the minimum risk you need to have in order to meet your goals. And that way, if your risk tolerance questionnaire came back a little more aggressive than your minimum that you need to reach your goals, you've got some bandwidth to make that decision to go with what you feel like you can withstand in terms of volatility, or what you know is going to get you to the end, the finish line, you know?
All right. And then I just realized we missed one earlier. I mean, it may be a little complicated to go over everything because of the sliding scale and stuff, but what's the fee schedule for Earned?
It's a sliding scale. It starts, I guess the best way to say it, and I usually don't go through the fees, but I think it's 1.13% at $1 million and 0.99% at $2 million. So just think of it from 0 to $1 million is about 1.13. And that includes, okay, so I want to provide some context on that. If that fee was just for investment management, you know, I don't think that's worth it, especially if you're still building up your assets. But if you factor in all of the benefits you get from the insurance review, tax planning, estate planning conversations, it's pretty significant. And it reminds me of an example where in one of the estate plan reviews, we allowed our client to see that she inadvertently disinherited her spouse in her estate plan because the estate plan was old and it was before she was married. And so if something happened to her right then and there, her spouse would have been disinherited because she wasn't on the trust. We also did a insurance review for a client who had an SBA loan, and the requirement was he needed to have a $4 million term insurance on him. But the kind that he got was the increasing term level. So it wasn't level, sorry, it was increasing. And he was going to go from 9,000 to like, I think 90,000 a year because it was that jump. Yeah. And so we went in the market and looked for him, and we were able to find insurance for him that would cover him for the period that he needed to be insured for the SBA loan. And that added up to about $1 million in savings. Wow. $1 million of premiums that he wasn't going to have to pay because of what we found. And then most recently too, we just, again, went through someone's insurance, and it's interesting. We'll see a list of different policies for clients that they get along the way. And then all of a sudden there's just this, list of different insurance policies. So we'll go through it and see what's good, what's not. You're paying too much on this. Long story short, we were able to get a client the same coverage, but they saved $26,000 a year in premium payments. So definitely worth the fee.
And then I think two good ones to end on. One's very simple. Missed part of the webinar, will there be a replay? I believe the answer is yes, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then here's a great question for you. Does the benefit of direct indexing outweigh the costs, including if I just tax loss harvest low cost index funds?
Does the benefit of direct indexing outweigh?
So basically, does the tax benefit you get, does that outweigh the associated fees, I guess would be the question.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we actually did a study on our clients' portfolios, and we added an extra 1.8% alpha on the portfolio. So they were able to have the benchmark returns, and then also added the 1.8 because of the tax loss harvesting. Well, if you try to tax loss harvest low cost index funds, remember that index fund in that locked briefcase, you're just tax loss harvesting the briefcase. What we're doing is tax loss harvesting what's inside the briefcase. So there's more opportunity to do that throughout the year.
Awesome. Well, I'll say, definitely on my end, thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, the EARN team and Mihan and Jorge and the Physician on Fire team for having me. And Mihan, I'll let you kind of sunset us, I guess, talking about this awesome app you guys have developed.
Yeah, if you look at this last page, we have a very special app for Physicians on Fire. And so you can go on to, or just scan this QR, and it'll allow you to bring all your finances to one place with our free budgeting app. So this is a great way to kick the tires and see what our app is all about. But you can know where your money is going. You can set goals and track progress. You can monitor monthly subscriptions, explore personalized spending trends, and access the Physician on Fire content you love.
Great. No, thanks, Mihan, and thank Jordan Frey. Jordan, you what you say resonates with me. This whole idea of burning out. When you chase, and my philosophy is you chase freedom, you don't chase commas. And what I mean commas in a bank account. Because when you chase commas in a bank account, you set yourself up for burnout. And I've seen so many physicians just chase, like you said, the RVUs and these numbers, and they do schedules that are impossible they're not sustainable. And then they end up being burning out, and then we all lose when that happens. To me, the trifecta is just this triple belief of, number one, money is not the goal. Number two, the goal is freedom, and number three is the money is the tool to get you there. And what you said about having a financial plan is so important, because having a plan is the map to your financial journey. But when you have a journey or a map, you need some kind of GPS. And that's what I love about this mobile app. Because having the mobile app is like having a CFO in your pocket. In medicine, we're so data driven. We talk about blood pressures, vitals, we monitor, and yet we don't use that we don't measure the financial health of our own personal lives. And worst of all, as doctors, we have no problem consulting and getting help on any of our complicated patients, and yet we do not get consults on our financial health. So I'm really pro financial advisors and just getting advice from them, no matter where in the journey you are. So thank you for that. Look up for an email from EARN in case you missed anything in this webinar. Check out the mobile app. Again, thank you, Mihan, and thank you, Jordan Frey. You can check him out at the prudentplasticsurgeon.com. He's got amazing content, and we'll see you guys around. You have a great day.
Thanks, guys.